Here is the reality. When it comes to figuring out where to start, the truthful answer is guess and get going. The reason people say just throw them into the deep end is because, let me tell you, you start trying things real fast when you're sinking to the bottom of the pool. Hey, does splashing my arms around like this work? Does kicking my legs like this work? Does grabbing at the person next to me and like trying to climb up them, does that work? That's you running a bunch of experiments, which you never would have done sitting on the bank thinking about it. You will not be able to think your way to success. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't think. It just means when you think and then go, either a lot of time has passed. So I would say if you've thought for more than 72 hours about it, thinking is no longer going to help you. That window though, very beneficial. Sleep on it a couple nights, really think through it, do some research. But now, post 72 hours, it's time to take action. Now that doesn't mean that we're not gonna think about it anymore, we're not gonna research, we are a whole lot. But that research magnifies when it's paired with action. So now, reading an article, listening to a podcast, is paired with flailing around like an idiot in the deep end, going, oh my God, now I see what they were trying to explain in that book, that article, that video, whatever. But you're never gonna be able to make those connections if you're not actually in it. So you're not gonna think your way to success. You are definitely going to get in there and do your way to success.
Need motivation? Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Tom Bilyeu, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
That's the critical thing. There's no magical first step. You're so worried about the first step because you think that there's some like magical auspicious first step that's like, and I see this now with NFT artists where it's like, oh man, but my Genesis piece means everything. And so they don't create anything because they are so worried about what their first piece is. That noise. Do something. Create. Get out there. Try. Longevity. Longevity. That's the game. And if you would allow me an aside, there was a class, I forget where, but this is so interesting, bear with me, where an art teacher said, you have two options before you. Your final grade can either be based on a single piece, and that's all you have to create this entire time, or I can grade you based on the pounds of art that you output, literally. The pounds, the weight, the number of items that you create. I think this was a sculpture class. So you've got people that are like, hey, amazing. I'll take all my time. I'll do one thing. It's going to be amazing. And she said, without question, like 95% of the time, the best grades went to the people that did art by the pound. Why? Because they tried and failed and tried and failed, and they weren't precious about it, and they just got in there and they got messy and they pushed their skills forward. They got those samples, they learned, they researched, they tried. They had a whole bunch of stuff that was garbage. But man, a few times in there, they really hit on something and they really learned and they really pushed themselves forward. Live life by the pound.
Rule number 2, use failure to learn.
Here is how to conceptualize failure and the disappointment that goes along with it. Once you understand that what the human animal is designed to do is learn, then you have to ask yourself if what has made the human animal the most apex of apex predators the world has ever seen, the most capable of completely changing its environment, what is it that allows them to learn fast? And the answer is failure. Now, the reason that failure is truly useful, and I'm not just saying that to make you or myself feel better. In fact, I wish that it wasn't the way to learn the fastest. But the reality is, the reason that it works so well is that when you fail, you trigger areas of the brain that are focused on memory and focus. So you've got the memory side, so you're gonna remember this. You've got the pain, this does not feel good, I do not wanna go through this again. So you've got that, which heightens your emotions, which makes you more likely to remember this thing moving forward. And then it also narrows your attention. So you're really looking at, why did this go wrong? And when you have this sense of, I never want to repeat this, and you're looking very closely at, why did this go wrong? Now, all of a sudden, failures, because of what it does to your brain, and quite frankly, because you're in the mix, you're trying things, and we learn better from doing than from reading about it or hearing about it. So failures suddenly become the most information-rich data stream on planet Earth, heightens your likelihood of remembering, and it focuses you in on exactly what's the problem. So now, even though failing sucks, part of what makes it valuable is that it sucks. In fact, it may suck in order to make it valuable. Let that sink in. That nature went, when this happens, in order for this to be useful for this animal, for this evolutionary creature, I need to make sure that it becomes advantageous, so that as they make mistakes, assuming that they don't get eaten by a lion, I want to make sure that they don't put themselves in that position again. And so we have to learn from some method. And the method that gets us moving, taking action, trying things, feeling the pain, focusing, that's going to be the thing that we're going to get the most takeaways from. So now, as you reframe what failure is not proof that you're a loser. Failure is the process by which you become better. Okay? Failure is not the process that reveals that you're a loser. Failure is the process by which you become better. That is the name of failure. So now, when you fail, why would you beat yourself up over it? It's the nature of progress itself. There is no way to get better without failing. It's the fastest way. It is the most effective way. It is necessary. You have to do it. And by the way, for you to have failed at something, you showed the courage to try it. So instead of wasting time beating yourself up over the fact that something went wrong, we're going to say, that's the nature of progress. We have to try something. It's not going to work as well as we want it to, or I may fall flat on my face. I may outright embarrass myself. And if I let that break me, I will fail to learn the lesson. But if I do what nature is compelling me to do, and I focus on what went wrong, why did this happen? Because I never want to go through this again. You stack enough of those, what went wrong? I never want to go through this again. Enough of those together, and you actually get good. And translating potential into skill set is the name of the game. And you will never do that more efficiently than you will through failure and mistakes. So allowing yourself to wallow in disappointment doesn't make any sense. It's the learning process. This is what you have to do in order to get good. So there's no reason to spend a lot of time being disappointed. You brush yourself off, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you get going. That's it. That is the physics of progress.
Rule number 3, develop close, loving relationships.
Healthy relationships are a critical part of the human experience. If you truly want to live a joyful life, you need to make sure that you have close, loving relationships. If you don't currently have close, loving relationships, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Immediately address that in your life. If you need to start somewhere and you have no idea where to start, man, go to a soup kitchen. Do whatever. But get out with other people, start connecting to people, do something, some kind of way, join a Facebook group, join a club, virtual or in person, whatever weird interests you have. I promise there are other people out there that have that same interest. This was, 10 years ago, maybe more, 15 years ago, when I learned about furries, which I still am surprised is a thing, but it is a thing. And the fact that even pre-internet, there were entire groups of people that would meet up and this is their thing. I thought, okay, if there's people that are into that, no shade, man. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But if there is a convention's worth of people that are into that, then there is a group of people for every interest, no matter how niche. So find your people, connect. That is hugely important. And then don't look for other people to carry you, but having people in your life that support you, that, and this is the easiest way to explain this. From my wife, I say, I'm not looking for sympathy. Okay, I don't want you to feel bad for me. Empathy, that would be amazing. I want you to understand what I'm going through. Now, here's how it plays out. I said to her in the beginning, if ever I'm knocked to my knees, I don't want you to get on your knees with me, put an arm around me, cry with me, and tell me everything is going to be okay. It's not what I'm looking for. And even worse, I don't want you to do all that and then tell me, yeah, all of this sucks and it's in life, life's a sandwich and every day is another bite. People used to say that all the time when I was a kid. That was like the Tacoma motto. Drove me crazy. What I want, my beloved wife, when I'm knocked to my knees, which will happen, I want you to extend a hand I want you to show that you understand what I'm going through, but I want you to pull me back up, help brush me off, and remind me of what I'm capable of so that I can soothe myself, refocus, remember that I'm the learner, and get me pointed back in the right direction. That to me is the difference between empathy and sympathy. Don't cry for me. Help me get back in the fight. So surround yourself with people that are like that. Don't look for them to carry you. Having people that remind you of what you're capable of, having people remind you of what you're capable of becoming, that's rad. That's dope shit. Surround me with people like that, and I'm about it. But I don't just want somebody to cry with me. It's not going to take me where I want to go.
Rule number 4, set priorities.
I will tell you that my to-do list is always in order of importance. And I think that there is an optimal order to do things in. So important things, 100% using the lead domino strategy. So what's the biggest bang for my buck? What could I spend the next 15 minutes on that would have the biggest impact in leading me towards my goals? Okay, that's how I always think about my official to-do list. Now, when I think about a morning routine and what order I'm going to do things in, then it has to do with what's going on in my life at that point, what's the most important thing to me in that moment, and then ordering things accordingly. So there have been times in my life where the first thing I do is meditate. There have been times in my life where the first thing I do is go to the gym. And so those are really the big two things that I oscillate between, but there are also times where I will immediately go to work. So any one of those three things may be the first thing that I'm doing in my morning routine, depending on what's going on in my life. So how do I decide between those? So when I'm really focused on getting my physique in order, I'm focused on the gym as being the thing that I want to make sure that no matter what else happens during the day, I get that done, then I do that first. And that really is what slot number 1 is for in any morning routine, is what is the most important thing that you know, no matter what else falls by the wayside during this day, if it gets crazy, things will crop up, that I know that I'm going to get that thing. And so right now I'm going to the gym first. There was a long stretch of time there where I wasn't as focused on the gym. And so it was like, well, I'll work out later. Let me do a little bit of work first and then I'll go to the gym. And I found what was happening was instead of working out 5 days a week or 6 days a week, I was working 3 days a week or sometimes 2 days a week because so much would pop up during the day that I wasn't getting to it. Now, that made sense and I didn't change for a long time because there was so many key initiatives at Impact Theory that I was trying to get to that was truly more important to me. But then I hit a threshold event where I was like, nah, now I really want to get back in and really, really focus on the gym. And ironically, it was because my lower back started to hurt from underutilization. Just a quick shout out to anybody suffering from lower back pain. I can basically tell you what it is. Poor diet, high inflammation, and not deadlifting enough. Now, that doesn't mean high weight deadlifts. In fact, I used to do that. Now I just do low weight, high rep, but I find that my back hurts when I don't work it out. So again, everything's individual. Try it out for yourself, but that's important. So that's how I judge what to do first. My typical modus operandi would be that lifting is the first thing I do. Then I would meditate, and the meditation I use what I call thinkitation to get into then the work. So working out, meditating, work is typically my path. Again, mileage may vary, try your own. But if you're not sure what to do, you can try that one. It's pretty damn effective for waking up the brain, then practicing lowering your heart rate, your breathing rate by going straight into the meditation. And then when your brain has all that clarity that comes from working out, then you can leverage that as you meditate to get the ideas you're going to need to actually be effective at work. And that's why I do it.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, believe.
Once you believe something is possible, once you taste that thing, that other thing, like Tony Hawk when he was trying to do the 900, he was like, honestly, I didn't know if it could be done. And so once he landed it, then everybody started doing it. And it just became de rigueur, like, yeah, of course, if you can't do the 900, you can't even compete. But it had stood for so long until you could see, oh, it can be done. So the MDMA thing is, it puts you in such an altered brain state that you realize you can love yourself again. And when you feel that just intense acceptance and you're looking at the trauma, do this with somebody who knows what the they're doing. I'm not saying go to Vegas and get ecstasy. Medical treatment, MDMA. Find a study, they're out there. But being able to taste that other thing, the other state of loving and accepting yourself totally, even though the neurochemistry is going to radically change as you come out of that, you've now tasted it. You've run the 4-minute mile. You know it is possible. You've experienced it. You lived it. You were there. It's not somebody telling you about that shit. It is actual to you. You know it's possible. And that's the thing about success. That's what I want you guys to taste. I want you to know that this has been broken by somebody just as dumb as you. I'm not joking. You look at me as like an after photo. I look at me as a before photo. Like if you show me, this is one of our first offices, but if you show me, and I don't know if you already rolled them, baby, but show the photos of me as a kid. So, genius, right? Obviously. You can tell that kid's bright. He's going places. I used to wear that all the time. And yep, there's another one. This is a hat I was particularly fond of. So I did not take myself very seriously. So when I always tell the story that my own mother, who was my biggest cheerleader, quietly assumed that I was going to fail when I left for college. There she is. What's up, moms? So she had reason to believe that I was going to fail. I didn't take myself seriously. I didn't take anything seriously. I cheated all the way through high school. And it wasn't until shame, quite frankly, started dragging me out of bed. I was engaged to the lovely and beautiful Mrs. Elizabeth BILYEU'S. And yeah. And she would come home. We were living at her mom's house, by the way. And that's not sexy. Living at her mom's house. She was working, I wasn't. And my only job was to make her a sandwich when she came home for lunch, because she would come home for lunch. And I would lay in bed saying, I'm going to get up in 5 minutes, I'm going to get up in 5 minutes. And I would lay in bed for 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours in the morning. And the only thing that got me up was knowing if I didn't get up right then, I wasn't going to have her sandwich ready when she came. And that was like a shame too deep to bear. And so I would scramble down, my hair a mess, in just sweatpants, the same sweatpants that I wore every day, which she did not find very sexy. And I would make her a sandwich and be kind of mad if she seemed a little off that, I made the sandwich. Yeah, if you could do your hair, maybe that would be nice. And I was just like, Jesus, ask. And finally, I realized I told her I was going to make her rich. And when I went to her dad to ask for his blessing to propose to her, he told me no. He wasn't going to give me his blessing. And he asked me a super powerful question. And he said, how are you going to take care of my daughter? I was broke. I didn't have a job. And I said, sir, look, I know what you see is a broke kid who's undereducated from Tacoma, Washington. And what you don't see is that I'm the most ambitious person you've ever met. And I thought he would be moved. And I thought he would be like, you know what, kid, good on you. Go marry my daughter. And he didn't. He was like, look, you can have sex with her, but for the love of God, Do not marry my daughter. And I'm not joking. He didn't use those words in his defense, but he made it abundantly clear. I'm not old-fashioned, Tom. I'm not old-fashioned. And they have a Greek phrase, siga siga, which means slowly, slowly. So that became like the mantra for the whole family because everybody knew that Andreas had this whole thing where he wanted me to take it slowly and I was going far too fast for him. And I said, look, so I respect what you're saying, but I am going to propose to your daughter. And there I am. She said yes. I gave her the whole speech. I'm going to make you rich. This is going to be amazing. I've got all this ambition. I'm going to make it happen. And as I'm laying in bed, I have a pivotal realization, which is that there is a massive chasm between ambition and drive. And I had the ambition and I did not have the drive to see it through. But I was so ashamed of myself that that shame actually propelled me forward. Because I now had essentially people watching. I had a father-in-law who wanted to know what I was going to make myself. I had my fiance who wanted to know, like, if I was really going to be the man that I promised her I was going to be. And so that got me moving, and that got me headed in the right direction. And that got me into all the things that you see now. But it was this incredibly long journey of being disappointed in myself and having shame and not knowing what I was doing and being in over my head and spending so much time in over my head that I end up developing crushing anxiety because I'm failing so much and I'm failing so often, but I have not yet divorced myself from the outcome. So because I'm so tied to the outcome, every hit is a hit to who I am. And so I begin turning inward and I'm thinking less of myself. Even though I'm moving up and moving forward, I just spend so much time smack bang on my face, doing something stupid, saying something stupid, actually fucking something up and costing a lot of money over and over and over. And so because I thought that meant I was bad, I was unworthy, I was never going to be able to achieve something, it was sending me into this death spiral. And it wasn't until I really started having to learn about the brain to get out from underneath the anxiety that I began to put a lot of the pieces in place, the rules, the beliefs and everything that ended up allowing me to catapult forward. And that is what, for Lisa and I, impact theory is all about. It's just getting people to realize you're an average human. Being an average human is enough. You can change far more than you think, but it's going to be really, really hard.
Rule number 6, change your self-talk.
You become what you repeat. Let me repeat that. You become what you repeat. Now, if you become what you repeat, and the thing that you repeat in your own head is what a loser you are, that things never go your way, that the world is against you, that you're hard done by, that you're just not talented like other people, that things weren't meant for you. If that's what you're repeating in your head, that is what is going to become your reality. Because if you predict it, right? Nothing ever works out for me. I'm a loser. I always screw things up. Okay. Your brain is a predictive machine. We talked about that before. So your brain is predicting, you're telling yourself on a loop that this never works out for me. I always screw things up. I'm too stupid, whatever. Your brain then is going to expect to see that. And then basically, no matter what happens, your brain is going to find a way to conform that to the narrative that you tell yourself. Okay. And we've all seen people do this where we're there in a room with them and we see things, whoa, things are like really working out for them. This is going great. And then when they retell the story, they only focus on the negative parts. And it's like, whoa, were we in the same room? Because what I saw was 80% good, sure, 20% bad, but it was 80% good. And all that person repeats is the 20% that was bad. And because that's their habit, that was all they saw when they looked at that event. And so really, understanding the necessity of grabbing a hold of that process, of recognizing whatever you allow yourself to repeat is going to be the thing that you see. It is going to become the bedrock of your life. So if you're repeating, I'm a learner, I can figure this out. There's nothing that you can put on me that on a long enough timeline, I can't figure out. These are the things I tell myself, by the way. So if you're ever wondering what it's like to be inside my head, it starts with a negative thought. I refuse to allow myself to repeat that. I do what's called a pattern interrupt. So as soon as I say, oh man, I'm too dumb, I'm never going to figure this out, I pattern interrupt. No, you're the learner. Do not allow yourself to repeat that you're dumb and that you can't figure this out. You're the learner. Anything that anybody brings you, you can figure out. Going back to the previous question, I say it with enthusiasm. I'm telling other people, I get myself hyped up. I smile, I get energetic. Now my brain goes, whoa, the body's like getting really amped up about this. The amplitude of reaction will get justified by my brain. And now, because I'm repeating it, that I can learn anything on a long enough timeline, I can be anyone at anything. Human potential is nearly limitless. The average person is the ultimate adaptation machine. Therefore, I am the ultimate adaptation machine. I can get good at anything with disciplined practice. And I'm saying that. I'm saying it in this heightened emotional way. Now, all of a sudden, my brain is justifying that, whoa, we really must be a learner. And this really must be a good thing because we're saying it with all this excitement. And so now, by repeating that, by doing that on a loop, by having that running 40, 50 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I now get an innate emotional response to challenge that's positive. And that puts me in this positive loop of where I don't encounter a challenge and want to stop or want to back off or feel badly about myself or think about all the times where I screwed it up. I encounter that challenge. I've repeated so many times that I can figure this out. And I've celebrated my wins so obsessively. And when I do something and 20% goes wrong and 80% goes right, I'm spending all my time with the things that went right. I learned from the things that went wrong, but I'm repeating about the things that went wrong that I can figure this out. I can learn it. I can get better. And then on the 80%, I'm celebrating it to really lock it in. And so that repetition is exactly how you make it stick.
Rule number 7, don't lose your excitement.
You have a sufficient why, you have a sufficient level of excitement. Now, all of a sudden, the behavior of getting up and doing that thing takes care of itself. So one of the most important things you can do in your life is to realize that it's critically important to be excited about the things you're trying to wrap these routines around. I see so many people fighting this ridiculously uphill battle to do a really hard thing that they don't care about. I have a really hard time doing things that I don't care about. So I'm always focusing first on getting myself to the point where I care. Now, that may mean that you have to change your life. If you hate your job, hate the things that you're doing with your time, step 1 is to start doing things that actually give you more energy than they take, that are exciting to you, that you're amped about, that seem worth pursuing, that you look out into your future 3 to 5 years. You know where you want to be, and you're taking meaningful steps to get there. Having a dream that is exciting and honorable, and you know that if I do this thing today and tomorrow and the day after, and I can make it a habit, and this becomes my routine, now I'm really making meaningful strides towards my goal. All of a sudden, when you don't feel like doing it, you just remind yourself what you're chasing. You remind yourself what that goal is. And most importantly, you remind yourself why you're pursuing that goal. It's a great Nietzsche quote. A person with a strong enough why can survive almost any how. When you know why you're doing something, because it is so thrilling to you, the thought of having that thing is so rad. The process of getting it, you've invested in, and you're even enjoying that process. That's when it's easy to get that new routine, because you have to let the old routine atrophy. But the only way to atrophy it is to replace it with something else. Just not doing anything isn't necessarily going to atrophy those sort of old habits, those old desires. You've got to give something new that you can lean into, that you can be excited about, that you can pour yourself into, that you can fantasize about. I'm going to have that future. That's going to be mine. And I'm doing XYZ thing, and it's actually moving me towards my goals. When you have that sense of progress, and you know, yo, if I keep doing this and pouring myself into this, look, I am getting better. And if you take the rate at which I'm improving and stretch it out over 3 or 5 years, or if you're willing, 10 years, it is crazy. It is absolutely, utterly life-changing. When you're pouring yourself into getting better at something, it is life-changing what you can do in 3, 5, 10 years. So now when you're thinking about it, you're talking to yourself about it, you're talking to other people about it, all you have to do is change your routine and you get that thing. That's very easy. And then when you get that feed loop of actually progressing, it becomes really easy to cement it. But you need excitement.
Rule number 8, stop overthinking.
Thinking is super important, and overthinking is a catastrophic waste of time. Now, I have rules in my life, and this is all a part of how I get control of my subconscious mind, how I get control of the things that I repeat, how I'm making sure that I'm making the most of my time. And what I am obsessed with is how the human mind works. So not judging it, not saying, oh, I wish it would be different, though there are many things that I do wish would be different. I focus entirely on recognizing the truth of the way the human mind works. And the way that the human mind works is that if you don't take action, you will never get the full benefit of the way that experience, action has this magnification effect of the lesson. It's what I call the whiteboard effect. When I was in high school and I was in math class, the teacher would explain something. I would think I had it, and I would go home and I would realize, whoa, I actually don't know how this works. The times where they forced me to go up to the whiteboard, even though I didn't want to do it, and I had to actually do the problem. I had to take action. I had to go through it. Then I realized where my sense that I understood something met the reality of I actually don't know this. And it forced me to work through it. That is life. There are things you can try to think your way through, and thinking is very valuable, but it needs to be done in conjunction with action. So you're not thinking in a vacuum, you're thinking back on the action you took. So to give you an idea, I recently had a big initiative here at Impact Theory, which is NFTs. And I didn't know anything about it. And I went from hearing the letters NFT put together in that order for the first time, and 48 to 72 hours later, we had launched a major initiative. And I'm talking multiple millions of dollars initiative. And the team was panicking a little because we were moving so quickly. But what I wanted them to understand is I'll never be able to think my way to understanding this. I can always back out of the initiative and not end up spending all the money that we, had earmarked for it. But to really understand if this is real, I have to go down that path. And Marie Forleo has a tremendous example about this, so powerful, about dance class. And she was like, oh, I'm 25. Could I ever be a dancer? I don't know. And she spent like a year like hemming and hawing. And then she said she went and took a single dance class. And 20 minutes into the dance class, she knew whether she was late to the party or not, she wanted to dedicate her life to dance. And that 20 minutes in a dance class had her in tears. And she was just like, it was a transformational moment for her. And 20 minutes did what a year could not do. And so when you force yourself to take action, which is the rule that I have in my life, that I know action cures all. You're never going to be able to think your way to the right solution. Do a little bit of thinking, do enough to have a general direction of which way you want to go, and then take action. I cannot tell you how many problems that is going to solve for you in your life. Take action. Take action. Action cures all. Going back to that idea of repetition, right? So that's one of those ideas you should get very obsessed with. Go out, take action. You will be shocked at how rapidly you will get past whatever death loop you've been in around overthinking. Now, you're going to take action and then think. Take more action and then think. Take more action and think. So as I go, I'm constantly researching. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly reflecting on what I do, but I'm always doing. And if you do that, it will transform your life.
Rule number 9, want it badly enough.
You are missing desire. You gotta want it. This is the big thing when people are procrastinating, when they give up, when they seem to lack grit. The reality is you just don't want it badly enough. And when you think of this, is one of my favorite stories about this, and you guys may have heard this, but it's so powerful. I want you to imagine that somebody grabs you by the back of the head and they shove your head underwater. Imagine how desperate you would feel to get out from under that. Imagine what you'd be willing to do. In normal day-to-day life, if somebody pissed you off, you probably wouldn't scratch their arms bloody. In normal day-to-day life, you might not claw somebody's eyes out. But if that is trying to drown you, When you start gasping for air, there is nothing that you won't do to get free. Nothing. When you want success as much as a drowning person wants their next breath, you will find a way. It's the amplitude of desire. That really is the thing that separates. I'll use me as an example. It is the thing that separates this part of my life from the beginning of my business career, when I wasn't sure I was going to see it through. I was lazy. I was scared. I was frustrated. I was hopeless. And because I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off, I was always ready to give up because it was so uncomfortable to face the fear because of my relationship. I thought that if I failed, it said something bad about me. We covered earlier. That isn't true, but that was certainly what I thought. My brain, for reasons of evolution, is lazy and it prompts lazy choices. So I fell prey to that. My brain was, or I was repeating things in my brain about myself that were self-defeating. And so it was very hard to really go after my goals. There was a hesitation. So you've got this dual problem of, I have all these things that tell me I probably shouldn't go after this. They're very scary. You're going to make a fool of yourself. And here, oh God, this is big. If you think you're a loser, but you don't have proof, there's hope in that. When you try something and you lose, now it's for real. Now you really are a loser. Now you tried it and you know you suck. At least when you just feared you might suck, there was no proof. So when I say you've got to want it, you've got to want it bad enough to fight through that period where you don't know if you're going to pull it off. You're afraid that you're going to end up being a total loser. And the people that go on to do just extraordinary things with their lives, they're people that want this success so badly that they're willing to face the fact that they might prove themselves to be a loser, which of course is an illusion and isn't actually how it plays out. But they needed this huge desire to help them overcome the fear that they might be as big of a loser as they think they are, and that everyone else is going to finally see what a loser they are. So you have to build the desire.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is escape the late nights.
I do that because I so know the value and benefit of sleep. I so love feeling well rested, and I so understand the realities of circadian rhythms and sleep timing and all of that stuff, that because I'm so obsessed with the goals that I'm chasing, and I see the reality of how these things impact it, it's very easy for me to put in a rule that says I go to bed by 9, simple as, and then stick to it because it gives me an outcome that I want. This goes back to don't chase things you don't want. Chase things that you want. Invest in that, and all this stuff gets a lot easier. Hate your job? Find a new one. Pursuing dreams that your parents think you should be pursuing? Find your own dreams. Have the guts to stand up to your parents and say, no, that's not the life you want to live. Trying to impress your neighbors or your friends or whatever? Stop. They don't give a shit, and you shouldn't either. The whole punchline of life is joy. Now, once you have that, and those are the things you're actually pursuing, it gets real easy to go to bed on time. And then make sure that you're carving yourself out time to do the things you love. So if you're like, yeah, but if I go to bed at 9, I won't have time to read, play video games, hang out with my spouse, whatever, do those things. Put them on your calendar. Make sure that you have time for them. Don't try to sneak in things like that at night because you think that's what you're supposed to do, or you're supposed to be, a good hustler or busting your ass or whatever. Look, nobody's more hardcore than me. I work 93 hours a week, every week, and have for years. I still make time for just outright fun shit. Even at 93 hours a week, there's a lot of extra hours. So, do things that you love. The reality is that those who can delay eating the marshmallow the longest do the best, because you're right. delaying gratification is an absolute superpower. Now, one of the most extraordinary experiments was done at Stanford University. It's called the marshmallow experiment. There's a whole book written on this, utterly fascinating. They followed the participants in this study for like 25 years. Absolutely incredible. They bring these kids into a room. They give them a marshmallow. And they say, hey, you can eat the marshmallow now if you want. But if you wait until I come back, then I'll give you 2 marshmallows. So it's basically double your money. It's not going to be that long. Now, what the kid doesn't know is that the researcher isn't coming back, and they just want to see how long the kid is going to wait until they eat it. They do eventually come back, but they leave him really to struggle for quite some time. And what they found was the kids that could come up with games, whether singing to themselves, not looking at the marshmallow, whatever, the kids that were able to delay the gratification the longest ended up doing the best. They got the best grades, they got the highest paying jobs, they had the most successful relationships. Now, the reason that that works is in any one moment, if you're just operating around optimizing for momentary mind states, brain states, neurochemical states, then you're always going to be in short-term thinking. You're always going to get short-term results. If, however, you have this goal that excites you and is honorable, and you're able to push through all the boring stuff and all of that, then what you get is a set of skills that allow you to do things other people can't do. And as we established in the last question, if you can do things other people can't do, that is by its very nature success. And you will be rewarded in a way that other people will not be rewarded because they can't do the things you do. And as long as the things that you do are valued by society, then you are always going to do very well. But that ultimately is the key. You have to be able to delay gratification. Now, for me, understanding that that was the nature of things, that if I can delay my momentary wishes for something longer term, then I could get these very different results that separated me from other people. And because I'm excited about what I'm pursuing, I use that excitement as my trick to stay focused when things get boring. And I've said many times that boredom kills more entrepreneurs than failure. So everyone will tell you that fear of failure is what stops people, and that is a huge deal. But honestly, I think it's the fact that people don't want the outcome badly enough to fight through all the boring, painful stuff that you have to go through to get to the other side to ultimately be successful. So make sure that you are hyped up on your goal. If you're not, then you're not going to be willing to go through all the difficult things. Let's play a game. And let's call this game, What Would Tom Do? Now I want you to ask, do you think that Tom is going to stay in a bad job for long? No. I'll skip to the last page. And Tom has a bad job, skip to the last page, Tom leaves the job. Now, Tom is going to be very thoughtful because I completely understand that this is largely about, I have to pay bills. Hey, Tom, nice for you. You don't have kids and you've already been successful. So that's not really helpful for me. Now I will say that joy and fulfillment are the punchline of life, not money, not success, not adoration. So you are losing if you're staying in a job that makes you unhappy. I promise if you have kids, and that's the thing that's really making this difficult, you are bringing that unhappiness home. And so we have a moral obligation to break that, to make sure that we are pursuing things that are joyful so that we can show our kids, hey, this is how it's done. Now, you're not stuck at a job. There is something that's making you feel stuck at the job. I'm going to assume for now that it's money, keeping a roof over your loved ones' heads. That to me seems like the scariest. So, okay, assuming that it's that, remember, there are always 2 levers. Lever number 1, make more money. Lever number 2, need less money. Okay? You can pull on either lever you want. Now, if you say, Tom, I can't need less money, it's just we've already cut it all to the quick. My kids just need a certain amount. It just is what it is. Okay, amazing. So now we're going to make more money. Awesome. How do we go about doing that? First of all, let's identify what we hate about our job, because are there other roles within that company? If it's just the job but not the company, is there somewhere that we could move? In which case we go ask, hey, I want this job, which pays more money. What would I need to do? What skill set would I need to have? What expertise would I need to demonstrate in order to get there? And then go do that thing. If it's the company and the company's toxic, we can't be there anymore, then I will ask, how many resumes have you sent out in the last 48 hours? If the answer isn't 250, then we've got some work to do. Now, let's assume that the answer is 250. Then we have to figure out, why aren't we getting a response? Do we not have a skill set that's marketable? Is our resume terrible? Are we not going out to the right places? Have we not framed ourselves well? Could be any one of those things. But we have to be honest and real and figure out what we need to do to get out of this situation. But we certainly don't just accept defeat and go, wow, this sucks. This is my whole life. Nights and weekends is also going to come to our help, our aid here. So nights and weekends, if you know, whoa, I just don't have the skill set that I need to go find another job, then we're going to start building that skill set. Maybe the skill set is interviewing, getting good at interviewing, and then we're going to get good at that. But we are going to find a way out of our situation, and we are going to find a way out of our situation quickly. So do not accept defeat. Hold yourself accountable to the truth, to what you need to do to get out of that situation, and then get out. Because as you said, our time is truly limited. A few things. One, happiness, which is incredibly transitory, is probably not the right thing to focus on. The right thing to focus on, in my humble opinion, is fulfillment. And fulfillment has a formula which is about working really hard to gain a set of skills that allow you to achieve a goal that is both honorable and exciting. So you have to be hyped up about it, and it needs to serve not only yourself, but other people. Now that's a far more robust, resilient neurochemical state to pursue, and I should have said pursue a goal rather than attain it, because you may never attain it. But the pursuit of it ought to be the part that is leading you to fulfillment. So you're working really hard to gain a set of skills that allow you to serve not only yourself, but other people. Okay, so if we know that that's what we want to pursue, then the question becomes, how do we know that we're fulfilled? How do we know that we're happy? How do we know that we're sad? How do we know that we're anything? And the answer to that question is really self-awareness. And I mean literally being aware of self. So understanding that emotions spring forth from the body. They are not a top-down phenomenon. The interpretation of the emotion is a top-down phenomenon. But as Lisa Feldman Barrett details in her book, How Emotions Are Made, it's really a fascinating conversation is probably the right way to think about it, between your body and your mind. And so your body is giving you these feelings, which are in part due to values that you hold, beliefs that you have, historical experience, your genetic composition. And then based on that context, you feel, literally feel, a certain way. And then your higher level cognition tries to paint a story on top of that emotion, explaining why you feel it. But the reality is it's being kicked up by your body, and whatever story you're telling yourself may or may not be accurate. But we believe the story all the time, and this is how people end up in these negative spirals. But you have to learn to interpret those signals from your body. That's the important part about assessing where you're at on an emotional playing field, is you really have to get good at interpreting those emotions.
When I really think about what's the impact I want to have on the world, it's to show people that it does not matter where you are today. It only matters who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay to get there. And it makes me sad for other people that they think that I have some natural talent and that they then let themselves off the hook because of that. Because let me tell you, when I was laying in bed 4 hours a day, every day in the morning, I didn't feel talented. I'll just tell you that. Like, I felt like a loser. Social media didn't exist. There was no way for me to reach out to people and connect with these thought leaders. You could get Tony Robbins tapes and books and stuff, and that's what I did. But it's like, man, that's a pretty far cry from where things are today. And so I felt so hopeless and so lost and just unsure of how I was going to make anything in my life. And so for people to be like, oh, well, easy for you to say you have XYZ talents. Like, really, truly, I do not. I had zero instincts as an entrepreneur coming into it. I was a buffoon, fell on my face, embarrassed myself. I was just stupid beyond all imagining.
Your brain has evolved to be a thing. And there's a lot, rightly so, of focus in the popular zeitgeist around mindset about understanding the mind. And that is critically important. But so few people take the time to really understand what gives birth to the mind, which is your biology. And so understanding your mind within the context of evolution and the brain become critically important. And people that don't take the time to distinguish between the brain and the mind are doing themselves a disservice. I think much of what they go through is going to be, it's going to be surprising is what I was going to say, but the reality is what people end up getting stuck on is they confuse feeling with thinking. And the immediacy of feelings, the visceral nature of them, there's something about embedded in the way that we experience an emotion is this just screaming from our subconscious that this is real, this is true, this is like, this is it, this is the context. Everything you need to know, dear mind, is contained in this emotion. And it's really an interesting process that I think warrants a lot more thought on, certainly my part, and probably science's part, and for sure, any of you that are following along at home, a big part of what you should be thinking about is the nuance of how all of this comes into being and how emotions are. The great trick that they pull is they paint themselves to be self-evident. Thank you for letting me think in real time here. This is interesting. Emotions feel self-evidently right. I don't even want to say true because true doesn't capture what's really going on. When I try to talk about the physics of being human, a big part of that is that sense that my reaction to this moment, to this event, does not strike me as a decision. It strikes me as self-evidently right because of the things that I feel. And I'm pretty sure that as we went through one of the classes, I read a quote by Thomas Sowell, which I'm going to paraphrase. And it's, the problem isn't that Timmy doesn't know how to read. The problem isn't even that Timmy doesn't know how to think. The problem is that Timmy doesn't know what thinking is. He confuses it for feeling. And we feel something. It feels so self-evidently right that this reaction that we're having is not an echo of biology and context and our own life experiences and a bazillion decisions about what to believe that we have made. It feels self-evidently the only logical way to react to this set of circumstances. And that is what leads people to spiral because people have different reactions. They both think they are self-evidently right. And people spiral. And so now re-anchoring you guys back around this idea of, no, you have a goal. The only thing that matters is, will reacting the way that you're reacting take you towards that goal? And if we can all embrace this idea of fulfillment, that fulfillment is the goal, having a positive emotional state that is resilient to the ups and downs of life, because we have self-respect, self-worth, we're elevating ourselves, improving ourselves, and elevating, improving those around us. If that's our goal, and we can all buy into that, now we have a steering mechanism. And this is the thing that's crazy making for me in this, cultural upheaval that we're living through right now, which is people don't agree on what the goal is. And when you don't agree on what the goal is, now you have what Lisa and I call a collision of values. When you have a collision of values, either talk about the collision of values or shut the fuck up. Like legitimately, those are your two options. Because option one, let's talk about the collision of values and like what should be the goal. Fruitful things can come out of that. Arguing about the tea, as Lisa and I call it, the biggest argument we ever had was over a cup of tea. Now you can imagine that doesn't make any sense. How could you ever get in a fight that large over a cup of tea? The answer is you can't, but you can get in an argument that big about a collision of values, which then attacks your sense of self, identity. There's this incongruous thing where your reaction feels self-evidently correct. And yet this person is acting in a crazy way because the way that I feel, that is self-evidently correct. There's no need to even question it. It is obviously right. Now, you get these massive fireworks because the other person is thinking the exact same thing. They feel self-evidently correct because they have all these emotions that are kicked up by their biology, that is kicked up by millions of years of evolution, misinterpreted through this lens that we live in called life in a modern context, completely removed from the evolutionary soup that our brains marinated in, as they were formed. And now all of a sudden, people cannot allow themselves to conceive that, oh, this emotion was a choice, which I have made somewhere through a string of the gazillion little moments that led up to right now in this moment. All of those decisions have formed a set of values, and those values are essentially invisible to me because I have mistaken them for truth. Therefore, my values become water, right, to the fish. Fish is the last one to know what water is. It's just, it permeates everything in their world. It just is. It's like us and air, right? That actually had to be discovered. Imagine the hundreds of thousands of years, like really think about how long, where you've got human level cognition as we think of it today, and yet there's no concept of I'm in this thing. It just, you're here. And values become that water. You don't even think about them. You don't think that they govern essentially every aspect of your life. And yet they do. And the failure to recognize that my values are not objectively real, they are simply choices that I have made invisibly based on all these emotions that I've gotten, which were kicked up to me by evolution. I don't understand them. I don't understand what drives them, but they feel self-evidently true. Therefore, I go with them. Therefore, however I feel, I confuse with thinking. And I think I've thought through the problem. I think I have articulated what my goal is and how I'm going to get there. But the reality is I've just been feeling this whole time. And chaos ensues. I know that what matters in life is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. And that how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself is largely a function of your identity, what you believe to be true about who you are. And I know that it is critically important to earn credibility with yourself. And to earn credibility with yourself, when you say you're going to do something, you must do it. And if you don't, then you won't have credibility with yourself. You won't be able to respect yourself. And unfortunately, you probably won't have a lot of self-worth. One of the keys to developing self-worth is to recognize what you think is worthy and then to do that. And so doing that thing is going to become incredibly important. And that's why I have these rules in my life. That's why I focus on identity. Now, there's a statement I use to understand where my identity is, which is I'm the type of person that. I'm the type of person that when I say I'm going to get out of bed in 10 minutes or less, I actually get out of bed in 10 minutes or less. Now, that makes me feel good about myself. I'm the type of person that believes so much in what he's building that Monday through Friday, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out, right? So you build these identity statements into your life that when you adhere to them, they make you feel good about who you are. They represent something in your value system that you believe to be true and worthy. And when you do that, and then you adhere to those things, then you're going to feel way better about yourself. And the desire to capture that feeling about who you are over and over and over becomes the very thing that propels you out of bed and gets you going and moving towards your dreams. So I cannot stress the importance of that enough. If something is really high value, really important, the most important thing you could be dealing with, then you're going to do everything you can do to move that ball forward. Now, inevitably, no matter what it is, there will be times where you will get to the point where you need a break or there's nothing more that you can do, whatever. And so you're going to do everything that you can do to push that ball forward. And then once you need to move on for whatever reason, then, or you're waiting for something, Then you go and focus on the smaller things. But don't be afraid to say, this is my number one priority. And so other things are going to get less attention. So one thing I always tell people at Impact Theory is doing less is always an option. What's not an option is hating your life. Okay, so we're not going to do things that allow us to hate our life. So if I know, hey, I've got a health issue, I have to go really ham, but I also have all this knick-knacky bullshit that I have to deal with, I'm going to take care of my health first and foremost. I'm going to cut out things that don't have, anything to do with that because they are less important to me. And we went through this with Lisa, and that meant that she was doing less at work. If you have to take paid time off or whatever, do it. If you have to take unpaid time off, do it. If you have to scale your lifestyle back to make sure that you can take unpaid time off, do it. There are 1,000 ways, but when something is truly the most important thing, then you need to address it as such. Now, what I find is everybody tries to have these dueling, competing number ones. They think that they're supposed to be doing all of these things at the same time. I'm just here to tell you that's not how it works. So you have to put things in rank order. There is no such thing as a dual number one priority. Okay? There is number one, there is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Okay? So line them up, do them in that order. And you have to be relentless about it, and you have to accept that not everything is going to get done as well as you want to get it done. But it should get done in priority order. I find people have a really hard time with that. That one to me is a bit weird. If your priorities are listed in order of the things that are important to you, why would you do them in any other way? Unless you're lying to yourself about what's actually important to you. So if what's really important to you is what your parents think about you, well, then you might start making stupid decisions because you're not being honest that what you really want is to please your parents. Now, once you start being honest about what your priorities are, like for instance, let's say you have a health issue and you have kids, and the reality is that your kids are your number one priority and your health is number 2. Now what do? You've got a choice. You either have to deprioritize your children, which is going to be hard for some people, or your spouse, or your job, or whatever, but be honest. And if you're not prepared to deprioritize your kids, then you have to own that and accept the consequences. Namely, depending on what your health issue is, you may die younger than you otherwise would because you're not addressing it. This is where we got to be honest. We have to say what's really going on. We've got to say what our priorities really are. And when we stop bullshitting ourselves about what our priorities are, then we can execute in priority order. And then everything in life gets clear and simple. It doesn't get easy, but it gets clear and it gets simple. Do it to it, as my mom would say.
If you have a $1 million business, you want to get it to 10 million. What's the best way to distribute your time between marketing, training your employees, developing yourself?
All right, everybody, what does this start with? Clarity of your goal. So what's your goal?
$10 million a year.
That's just money. How are you going to get there? Why are we just chasing money?
Yes.
Sell drugs. You might go to jail, but damn, on the way up, baby, you can make some money. The next best thing, crypto, then flipping NFTs, but you can go broke real fast doing that. But damn, if you hit, I made $100,000 in 48 hours on a single NFT that I bought for $250. Not financial advice, let me tell you. But those are really dumb ways. Crypto's not dumb. But those are like really sort of roll the dice, bet it all on black ways. If all you care about is money, it will send you down a very dark path that I'm not super helpful at. Once you have a goal and there's like a thing behind you, but even setting all that aside, I will just say you have to be in an industry where the upside potential is big enough that you could actually solve a problem. Remember, this starts with, I'm solving a problem. For somebody who knows they need that problem solved, and then I'm going to go solve it better than anybody else. That's the real answer. But if I could change your life, because this will matter so much, business is a game of attrition. Most people give up. Why do they give up? Because hard things suck. So, when you have a hard thing, who has read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? Is that really it? Scream that out if you've read it. Okay, this is the most important thing I will say to you, literally, in this whole talk. Every single person in this room, if you are serious about enjoying your life, read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It is about a guy who survived the concentration camps. He happened to be a neuroscientist, and what he realized was you could predict when someone would die within 72 hours because they would lose a sense of meaning and purpose. Now, if you can survive Auschwitz on meaning and purpose alone, let me tell you how important meaning and purpose is in a business. Because as hard as building a business has been, it's no Auschwitz. So trust me when I say meaning and purpose will get you through. When I was building Quest, it was all about saving my mom and my sister. That was what I attached to it. And so when I was there at 2 a.m. on a Friday night with bloody knuckles fixing a piece of equipment that I did not want to be fixing, I would think of my mom and my sister. I would not think of $10 million because nature has compelled me to think of them in a way, and I get an emotional reward I won't get from anything else. So even if you're just going to chase the 10 million, make it about your kids, giving them a better life or something. But think about that other something. We good?
How do you know when it's time to refuel and choose self-care instead of continuing to grind? Physiological self-awareness is critical. I hear a lot of talk about people developing psychological self-awareness, so understanding what you're good at, what you want to do, all of those things, incredibly useful. But understanding how to read your body may be even more important than that. So Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, How Emotions Are Made, detail the way that emotions are far more of a bottom-up phenomenon, meaning they come from your body. It isn't you thinking about something and then creating the emotion down. That does happen. And of course, you can spiral yourself out of control simply by thinking. But usually what begins this thinking process is a sense of unease, right? Anxiety is a bodily feeling, oftentimes disconnected from what you're thinking. So figuring out, why do I have this sense? Being able to process it consciously, we can pull it up into our conscious mind and think through it with words and logic. But oftentimes it's starting with that like, oh man, I don't feel good about this and I don't know why. So this is the fascinating thing about drugs is drugs can either eliminate or change the bodily sensation, which then changes the story that you're telling yourself about the sensation. Now, this isn't an advertisement for drugs. It's to get you to understand that it can be risky to sever the sense of body from what you're telling yourself about it. So you want your body to give you this description of what is going on, but then as you take conscious control of that to develop that self-awareness around physiologically what's happening, you need to understand why you're feeling the way that you feel. And so developing that to get a sense of whether this is a time to keep pushing through, or whether this is like one of those moments where you actually really do need to step back. It's the difference between sore muscles from, a nice hard workout and a torn muscle or damaged joint from an injury. And the same thing is true when you're thinking about how hard to work, how hard to push yourself. You need to figure out this fatigue that I'm feeling, this unease, this anxiety, this stress. Is this a natural part of pushing through the difficulties of this project, or is something else going on? This is now really starting to cave in on me, and what I need to do now is take a step back, meditate, journal, hug my significant other, pet my dog, cuddle my kids, whatever the case may be, go for a run, but doing something that slows you down, lets you take a deep breath. And the only way to figure that out is to be able to interpret the feelings that your body's giving you into conscious thought, okay? And getting good at that loop is very, very important. And it takes practice. It takes understanding what the body is communicating, why it's communicating it, what impacts it, like what you eat and drink has a huge impact on what your gut is telling you. And then your brain tries to make sense of it. And it doesn't always go, oh, I'm feeling anxious because, in my case, I was drinking a 0-calorie Monster, which, much to my dismay, because I absolutely love them, make me feel anxious. And so getting an understanding of that, seeing that pattern was actually quite transformational because I stopped drinking them and my anxiety levels plummeted by like 70%. It's pretty crazy. Didn't take me to zero, but it made it a phenomenon that was easily manageable through meditation. So this is where you have to develop that awareness, that pattern recognition, and be able to say, oh, I feel this way because of XYZ thing happening at work or with my spouse or with food that I'm consuming. So be very thoughtful about that. And that will then help you determine whether it's we need self-care or we just need to push through. We're leading people into the unknown. We're leading them into whether it's business danger or emotional danger. And at the end of the day, sometimes people are going to get hurt, they're going to fail, whatever. They have to be resilient, they have to learn. But if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to be the human equivalent of a battle axe and get in there, try things, hard things, fail, practice, get stronger, learn, grow, then over time, despite the scars, you are more capable. You can do things other people can't do. I'm obsessed with that idea. I want to be able to do things other people cannot do. Now, when you can do things that other people cannot do, now you've got a real shot at whatever it is that you're trying to do. I want my name to echo through the annals of history. Now, I don't need other people to want that, but I want that. And I know for me to actually pull that off, which by the way, my identity is not tied up in that, my self-esteem is not tied up in that, I could die completely unknown. What I value myself for is the pursuit, but I sincerely pursue that. And to sincerely pursue that, I have to become capable of things other people are not capable of. I have to be so good that I cannot be denied. That's my obsession. I love that. I want that for you guys to both be willing to play at that level every day and yet not judge yourself if you're not there yet. That you only judge yourself by the sincere pursuit of something. That you show up every day playing to win, trying to be the best in the world at something that you care about, being unafraid to lead, to be out front, to fail people sometimes, to own it, to say, hey, I failed you. And this is why. And this is what I'm going to do next time to get a different result. And you will be shocked at how people will follow you more when you just own it. When you tell them what your plan is to get better and they see you on the front lines improving, people will fall in line. I f up all the time. But on balance, people see the rate at which I improve. They see that I have a goal and I'm a servant to that goal. And then I build skills based on what will take me to that goal. And because I win on balance more than I lose, people still follow. Where should a person start with improving their self-care if they have low self-esteem? Do you think leveraging one can directly improve the other? Okay. You've really got two issues here, but they are inextricably linked. You've got biology, you've got psychology. The self-care is largely going to be a question of biology, getting the sleep, eating a diet that at a cellular level is serving us, at a microbiome level is helping us, at a cognition level is helping us, right? Setting us up for success. Meditating, making sure that we get that background stress and anxiety radiation down to zero, huge in terms of getting you into a calm and creative space so that you can think through difficult problems. All of these things are what you're going to need to do if you want to do well in your life. Now, self-esteem is a whole nother issue. Self-esteem has everything to do with what you think about yourself when you're by yourself. Now, you have to earn your way to that. And so the key to earning your way to that is to figure out what is your value system. What do you value? What do you think is the way that people should be spending their time and their energies? And then are you doing things in accordance with that? And then there are things that are baked in that are innate. So there are these innate drivers given to us by evolution, hard work, the desire to contribute to the group, meaning and purpose, deep connection with other people that we love, okay? You have that imperative. There is nothing that you can do to shake that imperative. And so understanding how it works and understanding how you need to meet the needs of that if you want to be fulfilled and be joyful is critically important. So as you go about teasing out whether you have a self-care issue, a biological issue, a self-esteem issue, something that is either we're not addressing the imperatives to contribute, which is sort of the easiest one to go to, or we've let the self-care get so out of whack, we're not sleeping, we're not doing all of those things, that it's really beginning to debilitate us from doing the things that we need to do in order to build up our self-esteem. Now, your self-esteem is really built around the framework of congruence. I said I was going to do it and I'm going to do it. So that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. And then whether that's a promise you make to yourself or to somebody else. And then the fulfillment formula, which is to work really hard to gain a set of skills that are unique to you and matter to you or exciting to you, and that they serve not only yourself but other people. And so if you're doing that, working really hard to get exceptional at something that matters, that the world cares about and that you love, and then you contribute in a way that elevates you and other people, that's the game of fulfillment. And so if you're doing that, I think you will find that that will take care of self-esteem. But if you're not doing that, if you're not finding ways to contribute to the group, if you're not progressing in your life, then you're going to really struggle with that. So you do the self-care to make sure that you can actually build the self-esteem by contributing in that way. And then those two things work wonderfully together, but you have to recognize that they really are two separate issues and they both need to be addressed.
What I find is the thing that people are always, if somebody's going to compliment me, the thing that they're going to compliment me on is, Tom, you always seem so prepared for your interviews. And my thing is like, the only way to win in life is to be more prepared than everybody else. If you want to win a gold medal in the Olympics, you actually have to be better at that sport than any other human being on planet Earth. That's business. Here's another one, this drives me nuts. People will say, Tom, because I always tell people, you have to work hard, smart, and long hours. And the inevitable question that I get is, Tom, if I work hard and smart, why do I need to work long hours? Because you're going against me, and I'm willing to do all three. So now what? There's no arbiter other than being better, right? If your game is to be stronger, you better be able to lift more weight. If your product solves XYZ problem, it better actually solve it, and better than anything else. So the presentation is, hey, look guys, I'm a nervous wreck. I hate giving presentations. But the one thing that I know about my product, it will outperform. And I invite you now to put me in whatever circumstance you need to, and I'm going to show you that it outperforms. This is why, trust me, if Albert would let me, I would stay here on this stage and answer every single question. I would let people push me and say, no, but Tom, you haven't solved my problem. I will keep going until we solve your problem. Now, I don't mind doing that because it's first principles thinking. It applies to everything. I know my product is better. So I will just stand here and do this moment after moment after moment. When you get as confident in your product as I am in my ability to solve business problems, presenting will be very easy.
When you were making your transition into being successful, how did you combat the frustration of not being where you wanted to be? I'm never where I want to be. So I'm not where I want to be now. I'm not where I wanted to be when, people would have looked at it and said, oh my God, this is like the height of success. It was, one, I'm very careful to make sure that I'm only invested in the process. But because I'm trying to get somewhere, that intentionally I'm throwing way beyond where I'm at. I'm always thinking about what it's going to take to get to that next level. I'm never where I quote unquote want to be, but I don't trick myself into tying my value to achieving it. So I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the ride. I'm in it for the process. I'm in it for the learning. And I make sure that I'm handcrafting my life to optimize for joy and fulfillment. And so knowing that, I cannot guarantee the success. I cannot guarantee ever that anyone is ever going to be successful. But I can guarantee that you're going to struggle. Guarantee. 100%. Nobody avoids it. That's it. Everybody that ever tries to do anything, and even most of the people that don't try to do anything, are going to struggle profoundly with moving forward. It's just hard like that. And so if you know that the struggle is guaranteed, then you can't allow yourself to waste time to be tormented by the fact that you're not where you want to be. Make sure you're having fun in the struggle. Figuring out how to struggle well, that's the answer. When I was coming up, the question I was told to ask myself was, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And what I realized is since failure is the most obvious answer, That's probably not the right question to ask. The right question to ask is, what would I do and love every day, even if I were failing? Now, failure is never going to be as fun as winning. I know that. But if you can do something that you believe in enough and that the act of trying to get good at it is fun in and of itself, now you're on the right path. That's where you want to focus. Put your time and energy into making sure that you love the process. Don't worry about the outcome. Worry about the process, getting better and loving that. Everything else will take care of itself. First and foremost, we are going to have to figure out what exactly has happened. So, is it that you don't have a dream or passion because you haven't taken the time to define that? Because let me be very clear. Passion is not an archaeological dig. It's an architectural build. So you don't turn inwards, look inside yourself, and find this glowing ember of passion and excitement that's been sitting there since birth, despite that some people will tell you that that's how this works, but it is not. If Steve Jobs were born 1,000 years ago, he would not have dreamed of making the iPhone. What ends up happening is you decide. There is something that you decide means enough to you that you're going to invest in it. And then over time, that investment turns that thing into a deep and abiding passion as you get better and you get feedback from the world that they value this thing that you're getting better at. But it isn't just lying dormant within you. And this is like the number one confusion that I encounter with people is they think that either they're broken and other people were born with a passion and they were not, or they just think that, you know, if I do enough introspection, I'm going to find something sitting inside of me. And finally, my life will be amazing. Once you realize that, in fact, what happens is when you look inside, all you're going to find are these sparks of interest. And from that spark of interest, through pursuing it as a process of gaining mastery, it will become a passion when you're able to use that skill set that you gained in the pursuit of mastery to serve not only yourself but other people. Okay? So doing that, now you're in this passion loop of you worked really hard, you gained this set of skills, allows you to serve other people, they give you feedback, oh my God, thank you, this is so amazing, I'm grateful for what you've done, built, created, given me, whatever the case may be. And that feels good, which makes you want to go get better, and that's the passion loop. Now, as you're doing that, you're able to really be energized by the things that you're doing. But it doesn't start by looking inward and finding something. It starts by realizing that you have to fan those flames of that spark of interest to turn it into the raging inferno that you want to feel of that passion. But that comes from that loop. Okay, so that's the first thing to assess. Now, if you already have or had a passion, but this job has somehow beaten it out of you, that's a very different story. And so if that's what's going on, we need to figure out what is it in the structure of that that is robbing you of that. What's going on exactly that's making this overwhelming or stressful or not fun? Is it politics in the office? Is it just the work environment is too fast-paced? Is it that you're not being honest with yourself about, you know, going back to this idea, 50% of you is hardwired, 50% of you is malleable. If the hardwired part is out of step with the life that you're trying to lead, there can be a lot of frustration there. So having the self-awareness to understand, did you put yourself in the wrong position? Are you trying to be Steve Jobs when you should be Steve Wozniak? That's a really imperative thing to look at. Now, I find that a lot of times companies have their own issues. Whenever you get a large group of people together, there are going to be weird things that have to be navigated. But at the end of the day, while you can't control everything that everybody does, you can always control how you react. And so you can reorient yourself within a company to figure out, one, if there's a path back to finding that joy, but that comes from breaking down what exactly happened that made you stop feeling the joy. And two, are you able to perform at a high enough level that you're able to create the space for you to get back on track? Because if you're going to go in and try to move things around and make some changes within the company or within your role or within how things work, you're going to need to be performing at a very high level to have the credibility to make that ask. And this is where it gets difficult. Nobody wants to hear this. I get it. Everybody wants to point fingers and say this is just a toxic company. But in reality, if it's that bad, leave. Do not waste time. Find another job first. I'm not just saying quit. Find another job, but get out of there. Don't act like you're actually in prison. You are not actually in prison. And yes, I understand that you have obligations and you may be a single parent with kids and huge responsibility. I completely understand. And I have the most empathy for that in the world. But I want you to understand, you are only as trapped as you allow yourself to be. If you have a useful skill set, you will be able to find another job. And now is the time to go looking for that while you're still getting paid. Now, if you don't have skill set that's marketable, that's where we have to start. And so building up the skill set so that we can be marketable somewhere else, that's going to give us the ability to perform where we are or leave if it's too toxic. But assuming that we're going to stay, now we need that skill set to perform at a very high level, to create the credibility, to make the ask, and go to your boss or whomever is creating, or maybe not even creating the problem, but who has the ability to help you create the solution. Now you go and say, I'm performing at a high level. Yes, yes. Oh my God, you're amazing. Okay, cool. Here are the things that I would need to change. So often people's first instinct is just peace out. And they don't realize that there are many things that they could have done to restructure the role, to create more space for themselves in order to stay. But what people end up letting happen is they let themselves burn out and then they want to leave and go somewhere else, not realizing that they will have the same problem at the next job. And instead of doing the work themselves, solving the internal problem of how we ended up here, whether it's lack of skill set, not setting boundaries, whatever the case may be, but keeping that ownership, keeping that responsibility, recognizing that if you make different choices, you get different outcomes so that you can go ahead and change things there. Now, again, if you want to leave, by all means, take your skill set and go elsewhere. But make sure that you're not doing what I was doing in my early 20s when I was about to move to New York because I was unhappy in LA and I thought that LA was the problem when in reality, it was my mindset. Once I changed my mindset, suddenly LA was amazing because it wasn't about LA. It was about me. And I thought, like something's got to change. And so I just wanted to go as far away as I could, but it wouldn't have solved the problem. I would have gotten to New York only to have the same issue again and again and again. I had to address my mindset. And once I did that, then everything changed. So be very careful, be very thoughtful about how you approach unwinding this problem. If you're always blaming other people, you're not going to get where you want to go because you're not looking for the things that you can do differently. You're letting your psychological immune system take over, make it other people's problems, and then you're not able to change. And once you realize that your life is an exact reflection of your choices, now it's not so you feel bad, it's so that you remember if you make different choices, you get different outcomes. And so now you can make these changes or gain more skills or whatever it is that's needed to get the life that you want. Now, no matter where you go, you will feel completely comfortable that you can shape things to your liking. But you have to know how the game works. You have to know that building skill set is the key. You have to know that communicating with your boss, what's working, what's not working, and to have earned the credibility to make the ask. Do all that, you'll have no problem.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from Tony Robbins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I was like, what does that mean? He said, well, think about it. He goes, you need to become more valuable if you want to have economic freedom. He said, you have to work on yourself more than anything else, and you have to work on it in a way where there's something you can do for others better than anyone else.